Well, today marks Donald Trump,
100th day.
yeah, 100th day in Congress.
Not Congress,
I
in
mean,
all.
in the presidency. Damn, I'm thinking Congress in the presidency. And so, but apparently they're saying that he has the lowest approval ratings.
That's if you believe CNN, and the way they did the poll is very suspect because they cherry picked who they sent the uh, polling tabulations to.
Right. And so, according to Newsweek, they're saying Donald Trump demands investigation into negative approval rating polls. President Trump has said pollsters that have shown his approval rating sliding in recent weeks should be investigated for election fraud. Trump cited recent polls from the New York Times, ABC, Washington Post, and Fox News, which put his approval ratings at 42%, 39%, and 44%, respectively. Responding to the polls, Trump wrote on Truth Social on Monday, "They are negative criminals who apologize to their subscribers and readers after I win elections big, much bigger than their polls showed I will win, lose a lot of credibility, and then go on cheating and lying for the next cycle, only worse." So Newsweek contacted the White House for a comment on Monday outside of the regular working hours. So why it matters? Trump has routinely attacked negative polls as rigged. I believe it's rigged.
I think it's rigged. And remember, these are the same people that predicting that mammy witch for the Democratic Party was going to beat him.
Right. And so and they're saying ABC and Washington Post show that Trump's approval rating had dropped to the lowest level in any president in the last 80 years at this point in their presidency.
BS.
Yeah. I don't buy
I
that.
don't buy that. I look at my own raw data, and that's not what I see.
Right. And so what has he done? He's done a lot. I have this timeline here, and I'm not going to go through all this because it's just so much. His first day in inauguration night, remember, he signed over 2 dozen executive orders. He released January 6th, closed the border from some day one of him being inaugurated, January 20th to now. The border is 98 to 99% closed, no border crossings of illegals. So
Remember, the people that run these polls and are upset with him are the same ones that want boys in sports bras and panties to be in the girls' locker rooms, restrooms, in girls' sports. They're the same ones that want to neuter your children in school by taking them to the school veterinarian. They're the same ones that want to give away all of your tax dollars to people who don't have any job or employment opportunities. Meanwhile, they won't deal with setting anything up so they could get jobs. This is the same group that wants the people to perpetually dependent, so they will look to the big tit to feed off of and support this blue bunch in perpetuity. This is the same one that wants to destroy masculinity in the traditional family, so they're the ones that are upset. Meanwhile, I don't think there has been a president since Franklin Roosevelt, when he was trying to quickly implement the New Deal, who's tried to carry out so much of his promised agenda so quickly. And I approve of it.
mhm.
Yeah, the usual suspects, same ones that were predicting he'd lose the election. But that didn't turn out right, did it?
Right. So it says Trump 100 days, right? Approval is the green, disapproval, I guess it's like this light
Yeah.
orange.
How many people did they each put in their pool? Now, there are 360 million people in the United States of America. And I bet you not one of them had 2,000 people in their pool. So they're saying we should have elected the witch.
Or saying that she would have been a better choice, which she would not have been.
Oh, hell no. That's an incompetent, casting couch, useless failure.
President talking tariffs and the economy. If you look at our new Fox News poll at 100 days job approval compared to other presidents, there you see the president at 44%, and you see his first term at 45% at this mark, the 100-day mark. We have other new polls that are revealing some concerns about the economy. Let's talk about that. The president talking.
So I want to expand this here, right, to make this bigger. So term 2, 44%, term 1, 45%. Biden had 54% in his first 100 days.
That's because they were staunchly behind him. And the problem with this whole thing is the people they're asking don't have a clue what inflation is. Other than that, the fact of the matter that's obvious is they pay more for what they get and get less for what they pay for. They understand that, but they don't have a clue as to how it gets there or what drives it. Tariffs, they don't even know. I bet you most of them don't even know what a tariff is. So you're going to take a poll on that? It's just this usual crowd of suspects that is trying to influence the opinions of a lot of people who know absolutely nothing about the subject, because what they are saying, I don't care what happened with the NFL draft last night. And that's what they're focused on.
So Obama, okay, 62%. That's because black people was just so happy he was a black man.
I think he's been one of our worst presidents ever. Bill Clinton, on balance, wasn't bad, though some of the stuff he did was absolutely atrocious. George W. Bush ranks, in my mind, with being one of the worst presidents we've ever had. And Biden was just, frankly, always a low-grade piece of urban trailer park trash who was ripping the public off by misappropriating funds and doing inside deals and getting money under the table. He was a crook.
So let's just say this, because Bush, okay, his first 100 days, I don't know. I'm not doing a deep dive on what he did. I could Google it. But that same year, 9/11 happened. That same year he was elected president, that first year. And so, and then we all know what happened after that. But if you look at all these men up here, the most effective was Trump, even in his first term.
Yeah. And they hate that because the thing that's going on in this country is the culmination of a half century of trying to emasculate it. Remember, chauvinist pig, that kind of thing. The slurs on masculinity. The culmination of take your daughter to work week and nothing about your sons.
But my thing is, if he's a bigot, if he's such a racist, how did he get elected twice?
Yeah, and then I heard Biden make speeches. He's one of the worst racists out there. George W. Bush, for goodness sakes, is from Texas.
But right. So
though he and the man next to him are blood kin relatives through his mama, through Obama's mama, Mr. Sotoro's mama.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Sotoro's maternal grandfather is first cousins with George W. Bush's daddy. So yeah, interesting family. And Biden was one of their flunkies.
Mm-hmm.
Real cute. So you have 1, 2, 3 relatives. You only have 2 people out of the 5 that aren't blood kin related to each other. Isn't that a mess?
I'm trying to figure out, we can never remember anything significant George W. Bush did in his presidency. He messed up a lot of things.
Well, the mass destruction.
Right.
The outright lie. And the purpose is to get the business that the man next to him had an interest in, and the one on the far end, well, should be on the far end, his daddy had an interest in, which is promoting Halliburton. Halliburton had been trying to bid with Saddam Hussein to get the contract to exploit Iraqi oil, but the Russians and France beat them. And what wound up happening after we got in under the false pretext of weapons of mass destruction, by 2007, their family company, Halliburton, got the right to exploit Iraqi oil, no bid. And later that year, they were bringing in a net, I think it was $2.7 million every 7 hours. That was a net.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just an extraordinary ripoff of the public, and a lot of people got sacrificed, still getting sacrificed up to 20 some years later to promote their family interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the collateral dangers of having a system like ours.
He has not.
And then look at Obama. He canceled the F-22 production contract after they got less than 150 of the aircraft. George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and before that, Bill Clinton condemned the United States to that crazy investment in the F-35, which is the most expensive Defense Department project we've ever had. And they have a less than capable aircraft.
So I do have a list here of George W. Bush. It says, okay, January 15th, 2021, Wikipedia is launched. So on January 20th of 2001, President W. Bush inaugural address. The 22nd reinstates ban on aid to groups performing or counseling abortion. 29th signs executive orders relating to faith-based and community initiatives. He meets with Mexican President Vicente Fox. Let's see. Signs $1 trillion tax cuts June the 7th. Oh, no, that's not the first 100 is up to April. Dennis Tito becomes world first space tourist. U.S. surveillance aircraft in collision with Chinese fighters. Rejects Kyoto Protocol, which is an international treaty to reduce global warming by setting limits on industrial emissions. He didn't do nothing.
What did Obama do his first 100 days? He didn't have any proposed legislation. He didn't have any executive orders of any significance. So in other words, they just put him in, and there were hidden agendas that were already in place. So you didn't get anything. I told people, I said, you can tell he's going to be a fraud because he's going to have a very, very low track record when it comes to sponsoring proposed legislation for his party to get through Congress. And he's going to have a very, very low track record when it comes to issuing executive orders that have a meaningful impact on the economy, military, social, legal, and general circumstances of the country.
Okay, so it says a list: inauguration, new transparency, old tax troubles, closing Guantanamo, starting diplomacy, selling the stimulus, savaging the stimulus, reaching out, changing directions, courting the stimulus, spectus, fair, unfair pay, bonus, but he didn't have anything.
No, he didn't. He was useless. He was a chick flick matinee star who was quite entertaining to some populations and did very little for anybody. But he did a lot for some of his friends.
All right, so here we go here. Barack Obama, this is January 20th, 2009 to January 20th, 2017. So scroll down. Okay.
No, this is first 100 days, remember?
No. Yeah, so they're talking about the two terms. This is the first term that I'm going to read out. So January 20th, he was inaugurated. 22nd, executive order ensuring lawful interrogations, directs the detainees in armed conflict shall be treated humanely and not be subject to violence to life in person or outrages to personal dignity. Also on the 22nd, directs review of cases in order to close Guantanamo Bay Detention Center, a controversial military prison for terrorism suspects. The 29th signs the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009.
That's not an executive order, and that's not proposed legislation. He signed legislation that was sent to him to endorse in his role as president or veto. So the question is what executive orders did he issue? In other words, how many and what about?
That said an executive order to close Guantanamo Bay.
No, when I said that's just follow the American law. The problem with Guantanamo Bay was it was not in compliance with American law, and somebody in the Defense Department was way out of line. So what did he do that was proposed legislation that he sent over to his party in Congress saying, please get this passed?
So it says he did address joint session of Congress on February 24th.
That's mandatory.
He signs Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. Or that was in October.
That's not his proposal. That's the legislation that got sent over.
Okay.
The point is what did he send over saying, I want this passed?
The first 100 is the executive order to close Guantanamo and the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Act. And he addressed.
That's not something he sent over. That's what got sent to him. In other words, Congress passed it and sent it to him to sign it. I'm asking, what did his administration draft and send over and say, I want this passed? He didn't.
What do you mean? Executive orders? You said executive?
No. See, the president can't pass laws. The Congress does.
But
a president, as part of his policy, can have his staff or himself draft up proposed legislation to send over to Congress. It doesn't count when the Congress sends it to him for his signature. What I'm talking about is FDR and Trump have a whole bunch of stuff, both of their terms, all of their terms, where they said these laws need to be passed. Take a look at them. I support them. I'm lobbying you to pass these laws.
Wait. What laws? Trump signed executive orders.
But he also sent over a bunch of legislation too.
Which ones?
Dealing with laws relative to the courts, dealing with the border situation. He's asking for changes in the tariff laws, and he sent over reams of paper explaining or detailing what the proposed legislation would be. So he's done stuff in the first 100 days.
No,
Obama didn't do that.
Right. No, he has done a lot. So looking at Obama and George Bush, their first 100 days does not equal to what Trump has done.
No.
So as far as executive orders, there's only 2 for Obama. And I think it was maybe 1 for George Bush.
In other words, they got into office and they didn't have any ideas to put in place. So they just ran their big mouths off. They got in because they matched the profile. And Bush got in basically because down in Florida, there was a debacle. That thing down there between Bush and Gore, when the major media entities got, through Truth in Lending, access to all of the ballots and had independent auditors go through them, they got the same results that the judge did when she appointed her own independent auditors. The Bush campaign did and the Gore campaign did. And it was showing that Gore got 62% of the Florida popular vote, which meant he was supposed to get their electoral college count. However, Kathleen Harris, who was the elected election commissioner for Florida and then volunteered to be co-chair of the Bush campaign, which should have resulted in her resignation, when she found out that Well, talking to the federal judge involved, when she found out that the count was 62 for Gore, she ran out of the courtroom in her bare feet, according to the judge, ran to the nearest phone or got a cell phone active and called in and said cancel the rest of the election. So
Okay, so
yeah,
let me read Obama's second term. It gets worse. So he was inaugurated. His second inaugural address was January 21st, 2013. No executive orders between then and May. May 18th, the Boston Marathon terrorist attack. March 7th, he signs the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2013.
that's an act of Congress. What did he do?
February 12th, delivers annual State of the Union address. January 29th, remarks at Del Sol High School. January 21st, second inaugural address. Nothing.
Nothing. He didn't do a damn thing. I've been telling people that for the age. What did he do? Is that leadership? No, that's just appearance. You got a chick flick matinee, and he was the star. Oh, he's dreamy, he's tall, he's handsome.
And that second term, in that first year of the second term in 2013, it was one executive order preparing the United States for the impacts of climate change, direct agencies to act to make it easier for local communities to be more resilient to climate change. So what was the hoopla?
Yeah. See, here's the thing. Trump is putting in place some necessary changes, and people have gotten used to it's like in a household where somebody's been very irresponsible and all they've done is spend, 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 spend. And then somebody says, wait a minute, we're going broke up in here. We can't keep this up. We're going to have to cut back. Oh, no, I want to get, I can't stand you, Mom. You know I wanted my Air Jordans, blah, blah, blah. Well, honey, we can't afford them. But you got to, everybody's wearing them. See, that's the same kind of attitude you're talking about. That is reflected in the so-called media that conducts these little bogus 12 to 1600 person polls when you have 360 million people. Divide 1600 by just say 350 million and see how many zeros you get before you get to a number.
Yeah, so it's like, and then on that same year, remarks at the ceremony commemorating the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. He made remarks about Student Loan Certainty Act. He made remarks on the acquittal of George Zimmerman, remarks at Georgetown University. He didn't do anything.
He made remarks. What did he put in writing in terms of executive orders? And see, the other thing you have to understand is you don't really think the president, average president, sits down and drafts this stuff, do you? He's got all these hundreds of people on staff. He's got the Defense Department. The entirety of the Defense Department is under him. The entirety of the State Department's under him. The Treasury Department's under him. The Attorney General's office is under him. All of these huge agencies are under him, and what happens is he orders them to get to work on something and submit the proposals, which he narrows down and vets until something is acceptable to him, if he even goes that far as there. These people you're talking about didn't even do that.
He only signed 3 executive orders his whole second term. And they are July 21st, 2014, executive order on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender employment discrimination. On February the 12th, 2014, executive order raising federal contractors' minimum wage from $7.25 to $10.10. In November of 2013, executive order preparing the United States for the impacts of climate change. 3. It's crazy though, because when you read what he done on paper on a timeline, it's like, no, this man didn't do shit. But
That's what I've been telling
what was
people.
the hoopla about?
Because it's all, see, look, this started, and I'm not getting on how efficacious he was. It was with Reagan. In other words, see, Reagan was a B-grade actor. So are you getting a real live ego who has these things that he does, where he is knowledgeable of foreign policy, defense, and all of these other things, and economics, and he's giving you what he as chief executive comes up with? Or is he an actor reading somebody else's script? Now, Reagan may or may not have had something going for himself, but that's what the new trend is. Find somebody who can play the part, not be the real deal. You know, Hollywood really turned me off when I got out there. I'm looking, you know, I like action adventure stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at some of these action adventure stuff, you know, excitement. There's a lot of gratuitous violence and sex and all of this other stuff in a plot line that keeps moving. And then when you run into the actors playing these parts, and they're just about as big a set of sissies as you've ever seen, and they're glorying over they got to play the rough trade act and all this other stuff. And you want, oh man, now come on.
So let's go to Joe Biden, sworn in January 20th.
What did he do?
Let's see. Any executive? We're looking for executive orders, correct? CNN town hall on vaccines. What is this? The COVID airstrikes. House passes the COVID-19 relief bill. Biden announces there will be enough vaccines.
He announces
The
what
Democrat control. Okay, so the Democrats control the Senate in 2020, and they passed the COVID-19 bill.
Yeah, but did he draft it and send it over, or did he just approve what his party?
He just signed it. No, he just signed it.
Yeah.
No executives yet. He unveils a $2 trillion infrastructure plan, and that's it. He holds his first formal news conference as president, sets new goal of 200 million shots. That was his first 100. Let me see. We're in April. Federal government reports 18,000 unaccompanied migrant children crossed the border in March, exceeding a previous monthly high. So that's when the evasion really started picking up as soon as he hit office.
Yeah, because they had that plan. See, they were going to declare them refugees and give them asylum status. So without having to get classes or take tests or anything, they would automatically become citizens who could vote in 5 years from the effective date of his order.
So here we go. First executive order, April 8th. Biden announces executive actions on guns, including limiting ghost guns and making it easier to flag family members who shouldn't be allowed to purchase firearms.
That's BS.
So
that's just part of their agenda to disarm the American public so they're more vulnerable, and they'd be depending upon Big Brother morphed into tranny big sister so that they could exercise more control over the American public.
And then on April 20th, right, a jury finds Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin guilty of murder. So that was his first 100 days.
Well, he didn't have anything to do with that.
Exactly. So one executive order on ghost guns.
To deprive citizens of their rights as a member of a constitutional government, constitutional nation, constitutionally governed nation. Yeah.
Now let's take a look at Trump's.
He had a whole bunch.
Right. He just got a whole bunch. January 20th, Trump signs executive orders declaring only 2 biological sexes. Trump orders U.S. to leave the WHO, the World Health Organization. President signs more than 24 executive orders, including eliminating DEI and freezing U.S. aid contracts and foreign aid. It doesn't stay, it goes on and on and on and on. He did so much here, so much.
You see, he knew he was going to be the president at least by November, all right? And by the middle week of November. So you mean to tell me that somebody has got all of this potential staff and they waste all of this time and they walk into office and they take the seat in the White House and they don't have a single thing to start working on? See, that always got me like, oh, come on, dude.
Oh my God. And so again, and that's why I'm glad you say, well, what did he do? What did he do? And I didn't really have time to flush this all out because I was running around today. But you're right. Listen, go and do a compare and contrast. If you read the shit on what these people did, because it's there. It's there forever. And you compare and contrast, they didn't do nothing their first 100 days.
Yeah, in other words, the media is getting on Trump for being probably the most productive president in the last 80 years. So what exactly are you complaining about?
So is that a sign that basically says the reason why they don't like it, because presidents is not supposed to be productive. They're supposed to just follow orders of.
Yeah. Or they have agendas that they facilitate, and the agendas don't have much of anything to do with ordinary people except maybe to jack them around.